Hello, everybody. All right, you should be able to see me, hear me, hopefully. Hello, hello. Okay, good. Yeah, so that's amazing to hear. Sorry for the delay, guys. Bit messy there. I guess next time I should just start the whole thing from OBS from the get-go instead of trying things through YouTube. You can't see me, or can you see me? Can see and hear. Okay, good. All right. So without further ado, we're here to judge the submissions for the Jungle Jewels Community Art Challenge. I'm working on doing some other ones. Again, like I said before, I'm also working on some minor prizes for future community challenges. So the more people will join, the better. And I hope to see a lot of you for the next one. Join the Discord server. The link is in the stream description. And by joining, you can participate and have a chance at winning some prizes. At the very least, you'll always get a shout out on my community wall and on my Instagram. Yeah, I'll wait a little bit, 3D Geek. No worries. Wait a bit. I'll share the link as well everywhere. Hello from Belgium. Hello from the Netherlands. So howdy, neighbor, I should say. Yeah, so we're waiting for people to drop in. Again, we got like 15 submissions for this one. And that's great to see. We're going to go over a few of them. What I'm going to do mostly is, because I don't have blend files for this one, I just have the final images. And I asked people to send in both the final image and the raw Blender render, essentially. And we're just going to compare the two, maybe give some feedback. And I hope this will be useful for some of you, where you can learn some new stuff. All right. Hello, hello. Good question, Leo. Yeah, so 4.0 came out. I haven't used it that much yet, but that's because I haven't had time really to use it yet. But I really like the changes that I've done. Mostly, I'm a big fan of the AGX color management that's now new. So in case you guys didn't know that, we used to have standard RGB colors in Blender a while back. That was like maybe 4 years back. And then about 3 years back, they changed it to Filmic, which was a lot better than standard. And now, yesterday, I guess, no, what day is it? Okay, yeah, so a couple days ago, we got 4.0, and that shipped with AGX, which is a new color management function inside of Blender, and it's just so much better than Filmic. So I really like that. Hi from Costa Rica. Well, hi from the Netherlands back. The challenge is already done, 3D Geek. So the challenge has passed. I've gotten all the submissions, and we're just going to go over them essentially in this case. Yep. All right. So I think, we've taken long enough, and it's about time we start to get going. My goal, or originally I wanted to sort of end the stream at 5 p.m. My time, so that's in roughly 1.5 hours, and we're going to try and do all of the submissions in that time. It started 2 weeks ago, roughly, maybe 3 now. It started November 1st, I believe, 3D Geek, or maybe a little bit earlier, actually. Not sure, but it started a couple weeks ago, and we had a runtime of 2 weeks, so people had 2 weeks to create a submission, and the theme for it was Jungle Jewels. I had a community poll inside of the Discord channel to ask people what they wanted it about. I had 4 options, and they decided on Jungle Jewels. I tried to keep the themes of these challenges a little bit vague. So Jungle Jewels is more of like an inspirational thing, because I want to trigger people, you know, into getting creative with it. I don't want to push them in a direction too much. So I have these vague concepts for the themes for the challenges. And that's why it's called Jungle Jewels. What time is it for you? Currently it's 3:30 p.m. for me, Leo. All right, so I believe if I now go to this, you guys should be able to see some amazing submissions. Let me know if you guys are able to see it. All right, so that's great. So this is the first submission I want to cover. It's by Sebastién Lenearts, who is actually a pupil of mine. I'm doing some tutoring for him and guidance to help him become an independent freelancer doing 3D. And he's making great steps so far. So I'm really happy to see how far he's come. And yeah, this is his submission. He called it, let me check what the name is, a Buddha cave hidden in the jungle. Makes sense, right? So that's what we're getting. I believe he actually photo scanned this Buddha sculpture there. So he didn't. It's low quality. Okay, yeah, sorry. I can't really do too much about that. I can zoom in, of course, but yeah. I guess that's just the bit rate. Maybe I've set it a little bit too low. I'll try and work on getting things up and running a little bit better for the next one, guys. You can also try and increase the settings for the stream and set it to 1080p HD. Maybe that makes a difference too. But yeah, so what we're seeing here is a character across a bridge. The bridge is across a chasm or some sort of canyon or something, and it seems to be in a cave, and there's this huge golden Buddha statue and a lot of bamboo. Now I think it looks great. Overall, my main feedback for this piece would be that it is a bit dark, and that's actually something you guys might notice from a lot of these submissions, is that they are a little bit dark overall. We can fix that, I guess, simply by, oh, look, there I am. You know, it's a little me on the screen as well. So yeah, the camera angle could be a little bit lower, I think, to make the, just like Lime does now is pointing out, the perspective here. The character is very small and the Buddha statue is really, really big. And to emphasize that, we can sort of move the camera down and have it look up a little bit more. Again, I do understand the choice though, because if you do have it look up, you might also need to create the actual top of the cave there. So I get the choice for this angle. But again, my main feedback here would be the darkness of it. And to show you guys what I mean, I think we can actually take this inside of Photoshop and do a little bit of compositing here. So I like to use the camera raw filter inside of Photoshop. No idea if you guys know it, but it's a very handy function. If you have Photoshop, use it. It's amazing. Yeah, I agree, Lime. It does look a little bit like a miniature version, and that is in part due to the camera angle. The next challenge will probably start December 1st, 3D Geek. So join the Discord. I'll issue another poll soon where we'll go over the themes, and December 1st is going to start. So for this image, what we want to do is we want to make it lighter, yeah? Especially in these dark areas on the sides there, we need a little bit more light. So usually we can just crank up the lightness. That's one thing we can do. For this one, it was still 3D Geek, but the next one, I'm not sure. I have to talk it over with the mods and the participants and the Discord, if people are down to do an animation, because it's a lot more work, obviously, than just doing a still. And if we just remove a little bit of contrast, ever so slightly, we can dial down the highlights as well, and then increase the shadows. And now if we go and we add a little bit of local contrast there, a little bit of texture, not too much though, because there's some grain here. And finally, we're going into color and improving the vibrancy a little bit. Slight bit of saturation. And there we have an edited version. So I think this is already a lot better. It's a very, very simple tweak, but it really makes a difference for the final animation. So, or I mean, still, if I save this, we can put them side to side real quick. Okay, so this is my edit. Again, really quick, we have a lot of noise here, so that's why it's probably not gonna look the best. And this is the original image. And as you can see, by adding in a little bit more light and a little less contrast, I think we clear up the image a little bit, because now this is so dark that essentially it's not really adding that much to the image. If anything, it might even detract from the image, because you know, you can make out some shapes. You probably can tell it's some kind of rock, but a lot of the detail is lost there. And this doesn't fix it all, but if we were to go in Blender, add a little bit more exposure, add a little bit more ambient light, we could get a little bit more light going, and I think it looks a lot better just with a simple tweak like this. All right. Great submission, Sebastian. Keep at it for sure. You're doing great. And we're going to move on to the next one. So for the next image, I have this piece by Knuckleschuckle. And I believe it's some sort of predator piece. And there's some soldiers, which kind of look like stormtroopers, the ones on the planet with the furry little guys. But yeah, we've got these soldiers going on here. There's this predator shape in here. Cool angle. There's a definite story going on. So as you can see, the sort of predator is looking down upon its prey or its enemy, or you know, we're not sure what that is, but there's some story going on for sure. Now we have the butterflies here for a nice visual element that sort of catches your eye. And I think by adding the shape here in the foreground and having the soldiers there in the background, again, we can sort of create this focal point for our eyes, where we start by looking at this shape and then continue down along the line and follow towards the soldiers, again telling the story of this sort of thing, hunting down. The piece is also called Young Blood Going on the First Hunt, so you know, that's aptly named, and it's told by the image, so that's a good thing, right? So it explains itself. However, again, I feel it's a bit dark. So let's go back to Photoshop here and see what we can do with it. Again, we don't have the, you know, the EXR render or anything, so we don't have any light data. So it's going to be rough, but we can definitely make a few changes. In this case, before going into like the camera raw filter, I think a good addition could be to have a little bit more light here. So these soldiers, for me, and probably especially for you guys with YouTube compression, are not going to be very, very visible. So we want to make those lighter, yeah? And by just adding in a very ugly, but then again, obvious shape, we can sort of highlight these soldiers. And I would highlight them in Blender with an actual area light shining on them, a little bit stronger, create a little bit more light there. But by itself, already, if we disable these 2 layers and we enable these 2 layers, this is just some simple overlays. You can already see that we now have a lot more of a focal point. It's a less flat image, essentially. Hey, good afternoon, Baeac. Say hello to Baeac, guys. He's one of the moderators on the Discord. And I'm not sure if Prince is in here, but he's another moderator on the Discord. So if you guys join the Discord, you'll probably chat a lot with them. All right, so yeah, you can do curves as well. Honestly, like ideally for me, a lot of these fixes would have been done in Blender and not inside of Photoshop, because there's only so much you can do inside of Photoshop with the compositing and stuff. Then again, you know, it does really help if you make a bit of a change. So I'm actually going to make this color of this thing a little bit more orange like this. And just take the whole sort of saturation down and maybe increase this one. And add a duplicate of this one. And we could just take this down, something like that. Again, not perfect, but hey, good afternoon, Kaiwan. Nice to see you. But yeah, so these slight tweaks make a difference. I'm just gonna merge all these layers. We can't spend forever on these images because we have to move on to the next ones as well, guys. Again, we're gonna add a little bit more vibrancy here. Overall, add in a tad more light, a little bit more contrast, pump up those shadows, because look at all those details here. Just, I mean, can we zoom in? Yes, we can. Ooh. See all those details here? They were all lost completely in the darkness because it was just too dark, but there's a lot of detail going on here, which is in the image, and we just need to highlight it. So simple fix again, makes all the difference. A little bit more texture, a little bit more local contrast, and there you go. Some very simple changes, and I think it looks a lot better. Tells the story a little bit clearer, and overall, it's not perfect because it's done in Photoshop and very, very quickly. The blueness from the butterflies is now gone, for example, but yeah, quick fix, which works. You don't like the yellow in the render? Yeah, okay. Maybe the yellow is too much. It could have been a bit more natural. I agree, but just for a quick fix here, I think it works fine. Yeah, I mean, there were already some God rays in there, Moki. So, by just emphasizing those a little bit, it makes the image more clear. And now the soldiers are still a little bit lost, but I think they're more readable. You forgot grain. Yeah, that's true. And we need grain, right? Grain is the key to realism. So let's do that again. And I'll just pump up some grain in there. Oh, that's a lot of grain. Just, let's say about 20. All right, so now we have grain too. Yep, so that's this image, and we're gonna move on to the next submission, which is this one. It's a very, very different piece, which is kind of what I liked because it's very unique as well. Oh, it's gone again. Wait. There we have it. This one is called Foliage Fantasy by AbhiYourPal. And to me, it's pretty unique. It's pretty good looking. It has a bit of an NFT kind of vibe going on for it. Maybe that's also because of the shapes in the back there, which kind of remind me of the, what's it, Foundation something NFT stuff. But yeah, really cool image, very different take. In my opinion, it's a little bit less jungly, but again, I kept the topics of these challenges vague just to get this range of artworks, right? So happy to see people take it in different directions. I think this one doesn't need that much, at least not that much that I can do inside of Photoshop. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Lime. It could use a little bit more foliage. It feels a bit sparse for an actual forest or jungle. But foliage is quite rough on in your computer, so I also get the choice to keep it limited for you know, save the render time. My main thing here is the water. At least I'm assuming this is water. The water here feels like it's not actually water. You're missing a little bit of see-through. You're missing, I don't know, it just feels more like rock to me. The human lacks clothes. Yeah, I guess they do, Prolis. But you know, I don't mind that too much. I'm going to, you know, the main thing here with the water is probably inside of the shader. Most people just tend to take water by taking the principled BSDF, setting the reflection to 0, and then making the color like blackish or dark, which works to an extent. It looked like liquid metal. Yes, that's very well put, Night Focus. That's very well put. It does look like liquid metal. By combining this with a Fresnel node or a layer weight node as sort of the factor for, you know what, actually let's go inside of Blender. I could just show you guys a little bit how that works. But yeah, by using a Fresnel node or a layer weight node, you can sort of control the transparency of the water by having it be more transparent the closer it is to the camera, or the closer the camera is to 0, essentially. So what I'm going to do is take a shader here. Let's go in rendered view. Let's go in cycles. Let's see if my computer likes doing all that. Let's put it on GPU compute. And let's add in an HDRI as well, so we have some light to work with. Something like that. Yep, works fine. Okay, so we're gonna make a new material, which we're gonna call water. By the way, this is the new principled BSDF shader. I still have to get used to it a little bit, but overall, you know, it's a lot better. It's a lot cleaner than the original principled BSDF. So we're gonna take a noise texture and a bump node and plug that into the normal, which means that we should be getting something. Let's hit Control T. Let's see, material preview, is it doing anything? Hello, bump. Oh, it's in strength. There it is. Yeah, okay, so it's doing something. Okay, now we have some bump, which is gonna resemble very ugly water, but it'll do for now. So again, in rendered view, this is how it looks. I know it's not great, but it's just to get the point across. So what we can do is we can take a Fresnel node, I believe it is, and we take a mix shader, and we use the Fresnel as the factor between two shaders. And if we now take a transparent BSDF and plug that into the bottom socket, set the roughness to 0, make the color black so we get a nice watery reflection here. Problem is, yes, GPU is graphics card and CPU is processor. That's true. But as you can see now, what it does is the closer you get to it, is it makes it more transparent, right? So This IOR is actually not the correct IOR for water. You can just Google those values. So IOR water, for example. Liquid water has 1.33. So let's put it at 1.33. And as you can see, is the closer the camera moves down to the water, the more transparent it becomes, right? So over here, it's more transparent, which makes sense, right? Because if you put your head and you go towards the water, you sink into the ocean, for example, the closer you get to the water, the more you can see the bottom, if it's clear at least. And if you just stand on the shore and you look far away, usually you don't see any transparency, it's just reflections. So this works really well. You can also try with a layer weight node, and I believe there's also another option. See, this also works, and you can actually control the amount that you want here. This is inverted actually, but it could work if you just take an invert node. Yeah, so if you have an actual bottom material here by having a plane, for example, and now you can't actually look through it, right? So if we just take the alpha like this, it's going to make the whole water transparent, which is not how it works. So instead, what we want to do is we want to have it like this and sort of control. Let's just use the normal Fresnel here. Control how it looks. And I think this will add a lot of realism to your water shader. It needs a little bit more work for it to look perfect, of course, but yeah. Again, if we take this image and do this trick to the water here, it will look a lot better. All right, so on to the next one. This is the next one, and it's actually 2 images. So again, I said it before, I asked everybody, but not everybody did it, but I asked everybody to send in both the render straight out of Blender and the composite render. So this is the submission by BikeMyMod, whose image I also used for the thumbnail here. And as you can see, this is a final submission. He used a mist pass compared to this one. So here, as you can see, there's no mist pass, no depth in the image. So he did it over here, and that's a lot better. He also added in, you know, a little bit more color, made it look a little bit more natural overall. My main feedback for this piece, again, is actually twofold. One, it's too dark here. So in this image, there's a lot more detail going on here, which I like a lot better. And over here, it's mostly just dark. And I get that, right? People want to lead their audience towards something. But we already have this very, very bright spot over here where people will automatically look at. So you can get away with adding in more detail here, which also makes it look more realistic, in my opinion. So if I take this image again, we're just gonna close this one off and take this image and put it in here. So we can actually just use a camera raw filter to fix this one. It's really, really easy. We can crank up the lights a little bit. We can crank up the contrast a little bit. We can downplay the highlights because the highlights don't need to be that strong. We can lift the shadows by a lot, actually. And already, as you can see, there's a lot of detail coming back. So all this detail in the corners, all these amazing plants, they are now back inside of the image. We can then add a little bit of texture, a little bit of local contrast. And because we still want to lead the eye of the viewer a little bit towards the center of the image, I'm just going to add a little bit of vignetting. So it's going to make it a little bit darker again, but it works differently than just having it dark by itself because you still see a lot more detail in there. Dark does make it scary. That's true, Adam. That's true. But yeah, I think this looks a lot better. I'm also going to add a little bit of vibrancy because I just love vibrancy in images. And there's something else that sort of bothers me in this image, and that's the color of this. So in my opinion, I'm assuming this is some sort of fire or something, is the color is way too red for it to be fire. And usually fire glows are orange. So the redness sort of detracts from the realism, and I also find it a little bit too intense. And we can actually just open up the color mixer here in Photoshop, and especially look at these reflections, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the red tints, I'm just gonna turn them more orange. And I'm gonna take the orange tints and turn them slightly more orange. And I mean, that's it, essentially. So this is the original image, the edit by Baeac. And this is my edit with some very, very simple changes, just using the camera raw filter. Yeah, I hope that sort of explains my point here, gets the message across. Very cool submission, by the way, Baeac. I love this structure that you got going on here. I love the amount of foliage compared to what we just saw in the previous image. This goes to show what foliage can do, right? So a lot of foliage makes it look realistic, because if you're in a forest or anything, or in a jungle, it's completely filled with plants. So the more plants, the better. Obviously, it's going to take a toll on your computer, but if you can add more plants, definitely do it. Yes, you can submit something, Problems animations, but not for this challenge, but for the next one, which will start in about 2 weeks or so. All right, so here we have our next submission. And again, we have a before and after. So this is the original image straight out of Blender. And this is the final image with the edit. I really like this piece. It's very unique. It has this weird sort of tropical, almost like an indoor pool vibe, but then very fancy. Like imagine a very fancy indoor jungle hotel or something like that. The water is nice and blue. There's a good color contrast in here. So we have vibrant greens, we have vibrant yellows and oranges, we have vibrant blues, we have strong lights, we have depth of field because there's plants here, there's plants here. So there's a very clear separation between, you know, foreground, midground, and background. And yeah, overall, that makes this for a really, really good image, in my opinion. And yes, Adam, I completely agree with what you're saying. You can feel the humidity. And maybe that's just because there's a ton of sort of haze going on, but it feels like it's a warm place, right? So that's very good somehow. Overall, I really like this piece. And honestly, there's basically nothing I would change. I also really like the edit. So this is straight out of Blender. It could use a little bit more vibrancy. It could use a little bit more color, a little bit more emphasis. And that's exactly what they did. So yeah, great piece. This was done by Jamdrop, and it's called Remnant Gems. Great piece, and in my opinion, absolutely a contestant for winning this challenge. Sharpening could work a little bit because there's a lot of detail. Honestly, the image looks a lot better in you know, on my screen, because there's no compression going on, which YouTube sadly does automatically. Hey Henrik, nice to see you. What is the current challenge? The current challenge is called Jungle Jewels, which, you know, you can tell from this. The next one, we don't have a topic just yet. Make sure to join the Discord and, you know, vote on your next choice for the theme for the next community challenge, for which I will also be giving away some prizes. So, you know, definitely worth to join it. Not for the prizes, but just for the learning experience and getting your work on the screen here and talking it over. So make sure to join the Discord. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next image. This was a fun piece by Jhonlemon, and it's called Digital Jungle. It's a very abstract piece. And let me go over to what he sort of said about the piece, because it's a very interesting take, right? It's a very unique take on the Jungle Jewels theme. I think we can all agree this piece is probably not gonna win. However, I do want to talk about it a little bit because I think it's an artistic take, if you will. So he said, your screen is 2D, so that's what every render actually looks like behind the scenes. And one of my mods said it looks like a PS1 game, and I thought it was pretty funny because it does look like a PS1 game. I think it's nice. It has this very abstract feel. It could be like an art piece on a wall in some fancy abstract modern museum or something. Overall, you know, it's not gonna win the challenge, but yeah, great submission, great work, and a very unique approach to this challenge. How do you join it? What do you mean, Moki? How do you join what? No idea. This next piece is called The Forgotten Cave by Davy Conquisti. Sorry if I butcher your name there, but I think what we can say, how do you join it? Oh, you can just join by joining the Discord channel, and then you can just submit your artwork for the next challenge. Yes, Slime, I agree. This person actually came a long way, because in the beginning there was no highlight on the tree here, and there was a lot of work that needed to be done. But again, I feel it's too dark, and you're sort of losing all the detail that you put into making this piece, which is a shame because you spent time on it, and by losing detail, you're sort of wasting your time essentially. So let's take this guy into Photoshop again, and let's see what we can do. So again, I would have loved to have the, you know, the original blend file here. Yes, please do, Prince. That would be great. But I'll again, I would love to have the original blend file here. It makes it a little bit easier to tweak things, but we can just go ahead and do another camera raw filter here and see if we can fix it with that. So first of all, let's pump up those shadows. Again, there's detail in here. We want that back. Now we can make this a little bit brighter, you know, why not? There's water here, apparently. I didn't see that in the final image. But by just taking up the lighting there, I mean, this might be getting a little bit repetitive, right? So we're just essentially doing the same thing a bunch of times. We can crank up the vibrancy a little bit. We can add a little bit more texture, a little bit more local contrast. Maybe that's a little bit too much, actually. Something like that. And overall, I think the image might be a little bit too green. So I'm just going to take it and make it slightly more yellow, just to get more natural tones in there. Add a little bit of blue and something like that. So I feel these simple changes, again, make a big difference. So there's water here. You kind of missed that. The tree, or this little plant thing here with the actual jungle jewels, which is a nice take here, are now a little bit more visible. And this background, all these nice rock elements are a lot more visible too. You could again add a bit more light here, I think. See how that changes things? I mean, it's so simple, but there's this water here, and the water gets lighting from this tree here, and it looks amazing, but you just need to show it, right? So add in more light to your scenes, guys. Honestly, it's usually easier to add in a little bit more light from the start and then dial it down than doing the opposite. So I would always go for overexposing things first when working inside of Blender, not when you're trying to edit, because then you'll lose all detail. But inside of Blender, overexposed, and then dial down the lights. A great tip for this actually is to use something, and I'm probably best off by showing you guys using something else here. Let's see, what do we have? A few God rays could definitely work, Lime. David, I'm using Photoshop to edit the image, but overall, of course, we're using Blender 3D here. The email is on your About page. Are you the one who replies the emails? I like to say yes. I do reply to emails that are on my that you are sending to my business email. So feel free to email me there. Anyways, so we have this scene here. Ahmed, yeah, that's a good question. I'll explain it to you. Basically, what happens is, because the image is dark does not mean that there's no detail inside of an image. Like, until the pixel is completely black, there's still detail there. So if I add a new layer and I just add in black here and make it completely black like this, now all detail would be lost. But every stage in between there basically contains color data, right? And color data, or lighting data in this case, is the same. So we can extract or sort of multiply the strength of that lighting data. So basically this pixel right here would just be darker green, right? So this pixel is now dark green, and I just made it light green. And in the original image before the camera raw filter, it was sort of almost close to black, but it wasn't black yet. So it was probably a very, very dark green tint. And by just, you know, adding in some lighting, add extra filters and stuff like that, we get all this detail, which is actually still in your render back. So yeah, that's how it works. Yes, this is someone's work submitted for the Jungle Jewels community challenge. Is compositing in Blender necessary, or should I use another software like After Effects? In regards to compositing, I'd say use whatever you like. For video, I tend to use DaVinci, which I also use for my video editing. For stills, I always prefer Photoshop, but that's mainly because I have 15 years of experience in Photoshop, if not more. So it's just easy to me to use. But I feel like, yeah, use whatever. If it works for you, it works, as long as you're comfortable using it. Okay, my computer. I just bought some parts for an upgrade, but I'm using currently a 3070 Ti RTX from Gigabyte NVIDIA RTX 3070 Ti. I believe an AMD Ryzen 7 3700X, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and just, you know, a basic MOBO and power supply. I do use Illustrator, however, not that much anymore. I'm also going to head on to the next submission to keep things going here. And this one is really fun. It's called Brick Jungle, and it's done by Jegoexport, or Jegoexport. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But yeah, he or they, I should say, made this entire piece out of Lego parts, all made by themselves. I believe they used geometry nodes for a lot of it. So geometry nodes was used to make a lot of this image. And yeah, I think it's a very, very fun take on the theme here. A very unique approach to use Lego instead of, you know, actual realism or something like that. I love it. I love Lego in general. So I think this is a really, really fun image. My main feedback again, yes, the tent is also Lego. You can actually get Lego tents. There's a bit of fabric that comes with it. we're gonna take it inside of Photoshop again, because I'm not sure if you guys agree, but I feel like it's a bit dark. So again, we're gonna, you know, repeat the same process, guys. You know, it's super boring, but I think it really goes to show we can make it a little bit brighter. I guess their choice here was to focus on the campfire here, so you wanted a bit of darkness in there, and maybe I can see that, but I feel still that there's a little bit of detail lost there. So especially here in the back, right? So if I dial down the shadows completely, you can see how much detail is lost. And if I turn it up, look at all those trees in the back there. They just appear magically. And since this is Lego, I feel it's fine to have maybe a bit of over exaggerated lighting going on. But we're just gonna bump it up, something like that. Dial down the highlights a little bit, add a little bit more contrast, maybe make the shadows a bit brighter, a bit more texture, a bit more local contrast. And for the color, I'm actually not gonna increase the vibrancy because this person really managed to get a lot of color in there, which is great. So yeah, the fire here, I believe they used an actual fire Lego brick and just gave it an emission. So I think that works really well for creating a Lego fire in this case. It's a funny idea because basically it's a weird fire, right? You have the sticks above the actual fire and the fire's not coming through, but it works in my opinion. This works really well. Yep. So minor changes again, guys. But this is the before and this is the after. In my opinion, the after works better again. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I have something against very dark images. I don't know. Could be me. But I hope you guys are sort of catching my drift here. It could use a little bit of mist lime, yeah. How long have I used Photoshop? I'm not entirely sure, but I believe I started using Photoshop when I was 14 and I'm now almost 33. So that's 18, 19 years. So that's quite a while. I've been doing it a lot longer than Blender actually. All right, so we are going on to the next one. Again, in my opinion, this is a great piece. Thank you for submitting it, Jegoexport, and a very fun idea. Maybe a contender for winning again. This next piece is called Suzanne in the Jungle, and it's by 5am5. Yes, I'm 33. And yes, I know I look 20 or something like that. You know, a lot of people tell me that. I was at the Blender conference this year and I get a lot of, oh, whoa, you're so old. Yes, I am. But you know, I'm happy I don't look my age, I guess. I'd rather be a little bit younger looking than people thinking I was 50 or something like that. I'm using Photoshop because I don't have blend files in this case, David. So normally I would say open up the blend file, change the lighting, and get it to look as good as possible inside of Blender before doing any compositing in Photoshop. But in this case, I'm just working with still images sent to me on the Discord here. So give it 5 years. Yeah, probably it's going to catch up real soon. And I'm going to get all the gray and wrinkly. My full-time job is 3D. Well, I'd say no, because my full-time job is running the whole YouTube channel and 3D is a part of that, but I spent maybe more time even creating video ideas, editing, recording, you know, everything besides basically doing 3D. So I don't spend as much time in 3D as I would like to sometimes. So yeah, Suzanne in the Jungle, we have two images again. This is the before, actually, straight out of Blender, and this is the after, which is a good edit, in my opinion. As you can see, there's a lot of detail lost here in the middle here, and after that, there's a nice green glow going on with the eyes, make it look nice and mysterious, and yeah, it's a lot more readable. Again, though, it's still a little bit dark, and I'm going to show you by taking this image here. There's actually a cat here. How many of you saw that? I didn't at first because it's just too dark. So we're gonna, you know, see, there's a detail in there. There's a bunch of detail in there, actually. I like that. Actually, we're gonna do not a whole lot more than just add in lights. And the shape of the cat here is highlighted by the light a little bit, but you're missing this contour here. So maybe it would have been better if there was an additional light that sort of, where is it? Oh, we're doing black. That sort of highlighted the shape. I'm doing this with a mouse, guys. I'm insane. Look at that. Look at those skills. But yeah, if we do something like that and multiply it a little bit, set it to normal, give it, we can create a bit of an outline for the cat, which makes it a little bit more obvious to see, in my opinion. Again, we can also just add in another one of these, take a little bit of focus on there, dial it down a little bit. So this makes the cat a lot more readable immediately, but I feel overall it still needs more light in here. So this is probably not something I can fix inside of Photoshop right now very easily without some time, but more lighting, and it could use a little bit of blur. Yes, it could use a little bit of blur. It's quite grainy, but that could also just be a hardware limitation, right? So if you don't have a great PC, then maybe this makes sense. We're just gonna go and add a little bit of a Gaussian blur here. Makes it a little bit better, but not that much, honestly. It's probably just a sample issue. We're gonna need more samples to fix this. What's on the other side of the lamp? Yes, I'm wondering that too. I have no idea. A character, maybe? There's not enough detail for me to to get it there. See, it's just more grain essentially. So I don't know what that is. I assume some sort of character, but I have no idea. A baby elephant, yes, maybe. Someone doing yoga, that could also be it for sure. All right, so fun submission, a very unique take again. I want to emphasize that, guys, for the next challenge as well. The topic is going to be vague, which is exactly what I want, because I want you guys to go all over the place, right? I don't want to see 10 renders of just, I don't know, jungle, leaves, and forests. I want to see original ideas, and by keeping it vague, we're getting these nice new ideas. Yes, Ahmed, that's exactly what it is. This is essentially black without detail. So it's become so dark in the final render that we have now lost any detail and we can't extract it anymore after. All right, so next art piece we have is called Echoes of the Intangible. And it was created by another one of my mods. And this is the straight out of Blender render. And this is the final edit that they sent in. So give a shout out to Prince Eagle. Maybe he's in the chat, not sure. But if he is, he made this. And yeah, what do you guys think? I did announce the community challenge in YouTube, Bupati, but I did it on my community wall, and I'm not sure everybody sees that. Hey, good to see you, Prince. So yeah, this is Prince's piece. I like the wireframe modifier in here. It's a unique take. It gives a little bit of a digital aspect to it. It looks real, yes. It does look kind of real to an extent. The wireframe sort of detracts from the realism because the actual foliage and stuff like that looks very real. And the water also looks kind of nice. The wireframe gives it a sort of abstract look that might detract from the realism, but I don't really mind that because that's definitely the artistic direction that Prince went for here. Again, over here on the sides, there's a little bit too much darkness going on, but in this case, because the rest of the image is nice and vibrant and light, I think it's not that big of an issue. And we also have this foreground element, which I'm not sure what it is actually, Prince. Can you explain what it is? Yeah. Oh, so actually I was gonna show you guys. I completely forgot. But if we have something like this here, I'm gonna show you how you can. Okay, it was supposed to be stairs. Okay, yeah. Now I see what you mean. I didn't get that from the get-go, but now you mention it, I understand what you mean. The water isn't visible. Yes, it is. And honestly, that's kind of how water works, right? So water should not be too much of a distracting part of your image, I believe, because it's water. And you can clearly see there's some sort of water going on here. I like that. It's not that visible. It doesn't detract from the image. Like, for example, the other image did with the Foliage Fantasy. So this one over here, let's go back a little bit. Here, the water is too visible. It detracts from the image. It's a noticeable aspect of the image. And over here, or for example, over here as well, the water isn't that much of a noticeable aspect of the image. It's there, but it's not annoying. And over here, that's the same. I don't think these are people. I think they're more or less sculptures, or maybe there's some, basically they're representations of the jewels, right? So maybe they're alien artifacts left behind, you know, some time ago, for example. But before I forget again, over here in Blender, if we have a scene like this, for example, and we go to color management, now in 4.0, by the way, we have AGX, which is awesome. But what we can also do, and that's a very pro tip here, is use false color. Now this will not look that great, but as you can see, this adds all these colors, right? These colors sort of explain how over or underexposed an image is. All red parts are overexposed, and white is even more overexposed. All purple or black parts are underexposed. Now, I can prove that to you by taking the exposure here, and if I just dial it down, basically we now have a completely underexposed image, right? Everything is either purple, dark or light blue, or black. That's not good. And if I go back to Filmic, you'll see that all detail is lost now. So if we were to take this export into Photoshop, we couldn't do anything with it. Again, going back to false color, if I now go the other direction, we get a completely overexposed image. So everything is white or red or orange. And if I take that in the actual product here, you can see all details lost again, but then in the opposite direction. So what you want to do, and this scene was properly exposed already by me, so doesn't need changes. But if you go to false color inside of Blender, you can see that the image is over or underexposed, and you want to get as much sort of greenish, grayish tones as possible, because green gray basically means your image is properly exposed. So all of this is properly exposed. This is maybe a little bit underexposed, but underexposure or overexposure doesn't have to be a bad thing if you use it artistically. So lights could definitely be overexposed, and shadows can definitely be underexposed. However, the general main part of the image should be greenish, grayish, and then you're good to go. So yeah, quick Blender tip for you guys. let's go back to the artwork here. Again, great submission, Prince. Love it. And we're gonna move on to the next one. Let's take the original image first. So this is called Diamond Ruin by GosseWorks or GosseWorks. I have no idea how to pronounce that either. Yeah, so here it is. I'm curious what you guys think. To me, I get that this sort of has to enhance the mysteriousness of this thing here. By the way, what I really liked, especially compared to the previous one, is they changed a little bit of the camera angle. They zoomed it in a little bit more. And they added this glow, right? So there's this amazing light flare there, lens flares as well. These ones over here, nice blue glow. Lighting is pretty good overall. But I feel that these trees are a bit in the way, right? So the idea is to sort of lead your eye towards this shining thing. But yeah, I could also use a bit better tree models, Boxy, that's true. But I feel, you know, overall, that's not the main issue. It's just they're sort of in front of it. It sort of detracts from this thing in the middle here. So what I would do is I would... let me just very ugly draw this for you guys. So we have this thing in the middle here, right? And that's the... Hello, can I draw? There we go. So we have this thing in the middle, which is basically the thing, the sculpture, and there's this glowing thing, and there's a light beam going up. What you want to do is, instead of putting like a tree in front of it, so now currently there's like a tree here, and there's a tree here, and there's a tree here, and there's a tree here. What you want to do instead is basically, again, lead the viewer's eyes by having all the lines converge into this direction. And we can do that by, again, just adding in the trees, but instead of having them block it, you can just add in a tree here and add in a tree here, and maybe get one that's like a foreground element here and add in a tree here. But maintain these lines. So whatever you do, maybe there's some small trees here, small tree here, small tree here, small tree here. But by maintaining these lines, you are guiding your viewers towards this. So maybe there's water here, or there's some plants here. I mean, this is probably the ugliest drawing I ever did, but I hope you guys sort of understand the point here, right? So what you don't want to block the focal point of the image, except if it's really sort of good looking and it really adds mystery to the piece here. But I think overall here, it's just a bit too much. I would have moved both of these trees a little bit to the side here so that we get a little bit better image there. I think if you sort of just take this and basically have it over there, and take this and basically have it over there, and then fill in the gap, that would look a lot better already immediately if the sculpture in the middle was still there. Yes, my doodle is very childish. But it's to get the point across, right? So I get what you mean by too symmetrical line, but you can just fix that by adding foreground and background elements to take away the symmetry. This is more or less just to explain how you want to guide your viewer's eye. I'm gonna remove it before somebody clips that. All right, so we're on to the next one, which is by Haider Ali. He's an amazing artist, and he submitted this piece called Jungle Jewels, very aptly named, of course. And this is the final edit that he submitted. He makes amazing artworks. So I wasn't surprised to see his amazing artwork in here as well. And yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys think, honestly, between the two images as well. Yes, everybody who made submissions used Blender, David. The only thing that they didn't do in Blender potentially is, for example, compositing or, you know, changing color and stuff like that. I really like the final image. What they did a lot better compared to the straight out of Blender render is that this part is sort of losing a lot of detail. And they added in all this contrast here, made it nice and bright and vibrant, and added in all this detail. However, they did lose a little bit of detail in here. And I kind of like the way the plants look here a bit better. This feels more like a video game to me. And this feels more like a definite stylized art piece. And I play a lot of video games, and maybe that's why I'm sort of inclined to choose this one, but with this lighting in the middle. So what I'm gonna do actually is I'm gonna take this image and not the final edit and see if we can maybe change that a little bit better. So we're gonna add in our camera raw filter, make it a little bit brighter, up the highlights, up the shadows as well. Now let's add a bit of texture, a little bit of local contrast. And we can add a slight vignette. Okay, so that's already a lot better in my opinion. This is all personal. I mean, Haider makes professional artworks, so you know, he can do with this what he wants, I guess. But I think that this really helps. So I'm gonna add a little bit of light there. Let's see what we can use. You can use different blend. No, this one works. Oh, that's not the one. We're gonna go for a nice orangey color like that. And just have it be a lot more subtle. I mean, it's not perfect, but again, I feel like the area around the temple right now is more visible and better because of that. I'm not sure how you guys agree. The god rays are already here. Look, there's god rays there, there's god rays here. So there's a bunch of god rays. That's why it looks so good, right? So god rays are, you know, a very quick and, well, not quick, I'd say, but at least a very good way of improving basically any image. And I'm just gonna merge these together, and we're gonna do another camera filter here. Basically, I want to add in more contrast. Let's just do that. There we go. I mean, yeah, that's it. The structure is kind of glowing, but it is. That's sort of the intention, right? There's some sort of light coming through it. That's the jewel that's inside. And maybe it's a little bit too much, probably. Yeah, I can see that too. It could be a bit too much here. My main take here is that the foliage around it in here feels too dark and too blue to me somehow. Although this looks a lot better than my edit. Completely agree. But the foliage here in my edit, I think looks better. Can I ask, is Blender annoying? Well, I mean, to an extent, yes. Blender can be very frustrating and it can be very difficult, but it's also an amazing free tool that allows you to do basically anything artistically that you want, whether it's 2D, 3D, animation, whatever. You can do all of it inside of Blender. It's relatively easy to learn, and most of all, there's an amazing community around it. that makes a lot of tutorials, free stuff, and you can easily learn it with all this free knowledge that's out there. All right, so to me, this is another contender for winning. And we're gonna move on to the last two pieces, and then we're gonna decide on the winner. So this is a late submission, officially submitted after the deadline closed. I decided to opt in for having it submitted because I thought it was a nice piece. And, you know, for the first challenge, we're not going to be too strict. But I think it's a very, very vibrant green piece. Not a whole lot I would change. How do you guys feel about this one? I think this thing is amazing, even though it's probably just a noise texture on this sort of edited shape. But I think it looks great. The plants look great. There's not a whole lot of them, but they're placed sort of intentionally, and that way they mask a large part of the image. So that works. There's foreground, there's background. Yeah, I like this one. It could use a bit more contrast. Yes, it is very sort of one color green. I agree with that. That's either the edit or the final, or like the render in Blender. Maybe it's just lighting. Maybe there needs to be more different lighting to sort of change the color of the foliage here. But yeah, the foliage does look all very similar in color. I agree. Why isn't it landscape? Well, that's another thing. Originally, everybody had to submit a landscape 1920 times 1080 image, and this person also didn't do that. So because of that, because of it being too late, and because of it not fitting the rules completely, it's not gonna win. But I did want to include it because it's a nice artwork. God Race would be Chef's Kiss. God Race will always be Chef's Kiss, basically. Yeah. Great piece. Keep on going. And I would love an on-time submission for the next challenge by this person. By the way, their name is TequilaChicken. That's a good name, right? And we're going to move on to the final piece here, which is called Ivara, and it's done by Dragon Hunter 55. And I think, I asked them what sort of the thought behind it was, and they said there wasn't really a thought behind it, and they just sort of slapped it together in 2 hours. I think it sort of shows a little bit, but then again, I do like the idea here, right? So what they've done well is they've had this foreground, the background, and there's this character going on. I think it's all really dark. Yes, just like Luke says, it's dark. Needs more light. And I cannot zoom out, I think, because I can only zoom in. It's just a full screen image. And you're not sure, yeah. So it's just this character here with a bow. But the character is missing some sort of silhouette, right? So it's hard to tell what's going on. So let's take this into Blender. I think this one is a good one to show what we can do here. First of all, let's apply first let's take our character here and make him more visible. So basically what you want to do is create highlights on the character that show the shape, right? So this isn't going to be perfect because we would need a light actually inside a Blender to do this. But by taking parts of the model and sort of adding in, we can highlight the shape stuff. And I think by just making this a little bit more light, we can start to see what's going on here. Now, ideally, this would look a lot better. But even then, with some simple highlights, basically tracing some of the parts that are important for the story. So we want to know there's an archer here. We want people to know that. So we can just take that. Let's see, we can use a blend mode that works a little bit better. So overall, we have already added a few highlights, makes it a little bit better. And now if we take big highlight, sort of make the whole character lighter. We can have it a little bit more visible. Oh, and then we're just going to add in our camera filter here to make the overall image a little bit better. And there's not a whole lot we can do with this image because there's just not enough data in there. But I think, again, with just these small changes, even though they're poorly executed and very roughly and quickly done, we can already see that's a lot better already, right? So now everybody should be able to tell there's a character here. The camera filter basically is an effect that allows you to tweak a lot of the lighting and color data inside of an image. Ideally, inside of Photoshop, you would load in an EXR image or a raw image from a photo camera, and it allows you to change basically anything that the image has going for it. So lighting, color, whatever, you can all sort of tweak that and create a better image. Essentially, it's sort of the Lightroom inside of Photoshop. Again, normally speaking, I would not do this inside of Photoshop. I would have had a better image inside of Blender, rendered it out, and only did some final compositing tweaks inside of Photoshop, which can be very, very minor, easy tweaks. But we don't have those. We just have still images, so we need to do this inside of Photoshop. I think it's oh, Dragon Hunter is in the chat actually. Good to have you here. So I think it's a pretty good piece, but it just needs more lighting to tell the story. And as you can see, with these simple changes, we now have a lot more story going on, and we can make this 10 times better by doing it properly inside of Blender. Yeah, this character is holding a bow, I think. So the strings here. This is supposed to be bowstrings. Can make those a little bit more vibrant as well. There you go. The leaves are blocking the view. Yes, they are a little bit, but I think that's kind of nice because they're creating this sort of depth inside of the image, and the camera angle looks interesting, right? So you're looking from this low up angle at this character that's doing something intense because they're gonna shoot an arrow at something, and having this sort of action shot from the lower angle makes it look interesting. All right, so that actually wraps up all the submissions for this one. So all 15 of them. I'm gonna close these down. And I want you guys to help me choose a winner here. So I'm not sure what's the best solution to do that. If I should just go through all of them again. Probably that's the best way to do it. No, there's not going to be a voting system. It's mainly going to be my choice versus and sort of your choices as well combined with it. For this one, we're just going to keep it simple. So let's start off with the original image. Oh, there's one we actually forgot, guys. This one. My bad. Yeah, I will sort of name everybody and give credits to everybody in the description on the VOD for this stream. So in the end, there will be a VOD, and I will give everybody credits. But again on stream here. Yeah, I missed one. Yeah, my bad. So this is actually called Temple in the Jungle by Mr. GR. He was actually in the chat a while back. I'm not sure if they still are. But yeah, I think this is an amazing piece as well. Again, completely agree. I see people in the chat already going like, yes, it's too dark. Yes, it is too dark. Especially here. I'm pretty sure that the left part here is probably so dark that you can't even actually extract any data from it, but we'll have to see. Let's see instead of Photoshop. Whoops. There we go. All right, so we're just gonna apply the camera raw filter here again. And let's see if we can see that sort of God ray coming through the leaves. Imagine this as an animation, right? So just changing the exposure and sort of having it sort of makes the sun look alive, right? I love that. Oh, there's data. Look at that. There's a lot of data, actually. It looked so dark that I thought it wasn't there, but there is. Now, I do want to keep this a little bit dark because there's obviously a choice here to keep all of the light on this tree stump here. But if we just take it like that, maybe add a bit of vibrancy, a bit of texture, a bit of contrast. There we go. So that's the after, that's the before. Yeah, I think this stream could also be called How to Make Dark Images Brighter, I guess. But yeah, I really love what taking a little bit of extra light can do for an image, right? All these people put in hours of work. They made great submissions. And by just cranking up those light values a little bit, we've made them a lot better, in my opinion. The older one was much more spooky. Yeah, I get what you mean. Maybe it should be like a, you know, a mix between the two. Maybe mine is too bright. Maybe it should be 50% of what I did. Any birds on the tree? No, there's not any birds on the tree, but it could be cool, right? You could add in as well, like let's say that this gate is huge. Maybe it's immensely huge. It's for giants. It's an ancient gate for giants, and these trees are huge as well, right? So you can just draw in tiny birds like this. Just a this is really poorly done again, but I mean, by just drawing in some of these birds here, we have created a sense of scale that makes all of this seem like it's for giants, right? And these birds, which we know have a certain size, they are very small, so it must mean that this is all very, very huge. So by adding in such little details like these, you can very easily tell a different story to your audience. They could also be butterflies, I guess. Yeah, they're pretty poor birds. But if you actually add in some bird models inside of Blender, have them properly lit, then it's going to look a lot better. Yeah, I think adding in such a fun little detail can tell a whole different story of your image here. Yeah, you can have light on the back here as well. Maybe there's some light coming through here, some red light. Maybe there's a fire behind there, some sort of Titan cave of you know, with a blacksmith doing some stuff. Yeah, that kind of looks like a snake. Yeah, guys, so that's basically it. This is the final submission. So again, I'm gonna go through all of them. Let me just remove all the original images here so we just get the final edits from everybody. Let's close this off. All right, so all the final submissions. We have Temple in the Jungle by Mr. GR. We have Buddha in Cave Hidden in the Jungle by Sebastian Leonards. We have the Youngblood Going on the First Hunt by Knuckleschuckle. We have the Foliage Fantasy by AbhiYourPal. Obviously, we have this by Baeac called Exploring the Ruins. We have, oh, that's a wrong one. We should check that one out. This one, we have Remnant Gems by Jamdrop. We have Digital Jungle by Jhonlemon. The Forgotten Cave by Davy Conquisti. Brick Jungle by Jegoexport. Suzanne in the Jungle by 5am5. Echoes of the Intangible by Prince Eagle. Diamond Ruin by GosseWorks. Jungle Jewels by Haider Ali. Jungle by TequilaChicken. And Ivara by Dragon Hunter 55. Yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys think is the best piece in here. Personally, my vote would be either this one, the Lego one, this one, or this one. Jungle Jewels, Jungle Jewels, Jungle Jewels. Okay, so we have 3 for Jungle Jewels. Yes, it's an amazing piece for sure. The Lego render is amazing as well. The main thing for me is that this image at least has good lighting already. I think this is too dark and it could be less blue, but overall the focal point of the image is well lit and very clearly readable. And I really like this one too. Yep. Yeah, that's probably because it's hard to find models and it's even harder to make them yourself, Proveless Animations. I also really like this one, or is this one out? I can do a poll, right? Yes, I can do a poll. Okay, so we're gonna do a poll, guys. Who's the winner? And we're gonna go for Jungle Fortress, which is the Haider Ali one. We're going for Remnant Gems, which is this one. We're going for the Lego Forest, and we're going for the Exploring the Ruins. So we're starting the poll now. This is option 1. I'm actually going to remove all the other images so I can just scroll through those. This goes, this goes, this goes, this goes, this goes. So here we have our 4 contestants: Exploring the Ruins, Remnant Gems, the Brick Jungle, and the Jungle Fortress by Haider Ali. Okay. Lego Forest doesn't seem to be winning. This is Jungle Fortress, by the way. You're now seeing Jungle Fortress. This is the Brick Jungle or Lego Forest. This is Remnant Gems, and this is Exploring the Ruins. I'm gonna go and give it 1 more minute. Not sure how many of you are in here right now. But let's see if we can get a few more votes. Does anybody have any questions before we decide on our winner? You know, while I'm still here, ready to answer any of your blunder questions. I can show them one more time for sure. Exploring the Ruins, Remnant Gems, brick jungle and the jungle fortress. Yep, make sure to vote, guys. Please submit your votes. The next challenge is going to be starting early in December, and it's going to run for 2 weeks again. So it probably starts on December 1st or something, and it's going to run until, you know, December 15th. You guys are going to have 2 weeks. In a little bit, a couple of days, maybe next week somewhere, I'll probably have a poll up on the Discord server where you can vote on the next theme. And I'm working on some small prizes for the top 3 or maybe 4 contestants. The challenge or the topic is completely up to you. I will just think of 4 different random topics. I'll make a poll on the Discord server and you guys can choose. How to make a dark render cool with its dark theme. If you have a dark render, it works fine, right? You can have a dark render just fine, but you will need elements which will attract the viewer's eye, and you never want to make something so dark that you lose detail. So in a dark forest, everything can look dark, but you can still have details on the trees. Maybe there's a lot of blue light from the moon, or for example, that's out, or maybe there's a campfire in the middle, but there's also one in the distance where there's 2 lighting points inside of your scene. And if there is a campfire, make it nice and bright. Make sure it lights up the environment. Make sure it lights up the characters or whatever there's in your scene. But yeah, that's basically how you would do a dark scene. Just have it look dark without losing all that detail that you've worked so hard to make. I came from Houdini and I left Houdini because I don't have a good GPU. I need somebody to tell me that Blender is good so I can continue lol. Blender is probably about 50 to 75% there compared to Houdini. So it's not as good as Houdini. At least not in, you know, doing all those fancy animations and particle stuff like that. It only sucks a lot worse, in my opinion, if you're talking about modeling, lighting, and all those things. So Blender is way more of a complete package, in my opinion. Houdini is just a lot better at doing fancy geometry nodes type stuff, procedural animations. Yeah, so I'll end the poll here. But I think it's kind of obvious. Jungle Fortress is the winner, guys. So thank you so much for all your votes here. I'll make sure to tell Haider Ali in the Discord channel that he's won. Yeah, like I said, there will be a shout out on my community wall for the winner and a Instagram post as well. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you all so much for submitting your works. Again, it was really amazing to see. This was the first challenge we ever did. It was kind of new to me. Sorry for the rocky start with the stream here. I'll promise to do better next time. Yeah, I hope you guys found this useful, learned something, and I hope to see you all in the Discord channel, and we'll work towards our next community challenge. Yeah, I have to go. The stream is over. Yeah, join the Discord, like Baeac said. Make sure to join the Discord. It's not just for the challenge, right? So the Discord is also just to share artworks, give feedback to others, and you can learn a lot there. I'm there, the mods are there to help you guys ask or answer any questions you may have, and overall, the point of it is just to create a safe learning community for Blender and 3D enthusiasts. All right. Thank you so much, guys. I wish you all a great weekend, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.